Hello, I'm here with Matt and Ken from Vega Global. How are you doing, guys? Good. I want to talk about integration with you. Selecting the right integration partner seems to be essential for successful outcomes. And if you ask me, there seem to be two options. You can go with a local integrator, or you can go with a global/regional integrator that's got a bit of a bigger presence. Matt, where do you fall on this divide?
Yeah, look, first of all, great to be back here in Barcelona at ISE. So, really enjoying the show. And when we're thinking about the integration perspective from particularly multinationals perspective, deciding whether you're going to go with a local integrator or someone with a regional presence or even a global presence, I think the key differentiator is that at the end of the day, they have campuses in all sorts of different cities across their portfolio, and they want a consistent product, and they want consistency in how you deliver that product as well. So one of the key things that we try to focus on is making sure that we have a structure in place where that client can interact with our guys and have a mode of communication to all the different cities where we're delivering our services from. And actually Ken is actually integral in that for us, so he can obviously talk a little bit more in depth about some of the mechanisms that we have to go through to give that sort of consistent service delivery. And maybe Ken, give us an example of, maybe not without naming names, but a client that's got a portfolio across Asia that we're working with.
So what we want to give them is like what Matthew has mentioned, give them a standardized service across the Asia Pacific. As we all know, the Asia Pacific, there's different regulations, language barrier, and Vega is really giving the platform of having people in country, and we have the dedicated global account manager to be the direct contact with the clients. So, the global account manager will be managing the clients like project regionally, making sure our standard is standardized. And then, because of the complication from the government regulatory system, so we can also offer in-country billing, which is another, very important factor for the clients. So I think in that remit, Vega is really setting up, differentiating from other system integrators. As you mentioned that, there's a local, system integrator they can work with. However, from our perspective, is really holding the hands with the clients. And we all know when there's project, there's always going to be problems. But we are there, if there's any problems, they got direct contact to the global account manager and myself, and also the senior executive as our, escalation point, I think that what makes, Vega, global account team very valuable.
Yeah. And one other important point is we have our own feet on the street in every location. So we're not layering, levels of responsibility. So the client has direct access to our guys on the ground, as well as Ken and myself in our head office.
And if you're going with a global integration partner, right, there are different routes that you can take. Even in that narrowed downstream, you can go with some collective, you can go with a coalition, and then there is the approach that you guys are taking. What are the differences? How do you think you guys come out ahead?
Yeah, look, the alliances definitely have, a role to play in the market, and they do deliver a version of the service that we just laid out. But I think from our perspective, because the challenges of doing business, particularly across Asia Pacific, are such that there's a lot of variance between country to country. So we took the approach of having our own people on the ground in every single country. Which, obviously the alliances rely on individual companies inside those countries to deliver the service. So I think, having Ken and his team sitting either in Hong Kong or Singapore and being the conduits out to all of our own guys on the ground gives us a little bit of an edge when it comes to having a client that is demanding kind of like that single point of contact. So I think, Ken does a lot of work, has a lot of late calls, working with the various client teams, making sure that we are supporting them.
Yeah, and to add to Matthew's point, like having an alliances, across Asia Pacific, in front of the client, of course, we will be like working together. But for us, having people on ground in country, actually, we had exercise like lessons learned, what's the thing that we, like knowledge transfer, which is a lot more different comparing to like when you have an alliances. Because for us, we are really within the organization. So all the documentations, all the things that we learn, we can host a meeting internally much more efficiently, I would say, and that actually gave us a more unique, selling point to the client even,
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is this dichotomy of variance and consistent experience. You brought it up, right?
Yeah.
Variance seems to just be increasing, right? Hybrid work, it differs from city to city, from client to client. And yet you've still got the same problem of trying to make a homogeneous experience that is somewhat standardized and somewhat familiar. How do you see Vega doing that, moving down the road?
Well, I mean, we're working very closely with the large multinationals, and they're the ones who are really driving that conversation. And of course, as we've come out of the pandemic, the disruption that's been caused is, we're all now capable of operating, whether we're at home or in a coffee shop or on a train or in the office. And of course, there are parts of your work where you can be isolated and remote, and there are other parts of the work where you need to be with the team and collaborating. And whether that's physically in the room together or collaborating through using those productivity tools, again, that's the variance that you have to accommodate. And as you pointed out, across Asia, all the cities vary significantly. So having the tools and the mechanism to allow people the flexibility to participate in the way that makes sense to them is actually really important. And we're doing a lot of that. And I think the way that the technology has accelerated through everybody now being able to at least log on to a video conferencing session. My kids had to do it for school, and my parents had to do it to communicate with us, all that sort of stuff. So now everyone can jump onto a video conferencing session. So I think that's kind of driven the uptake of it, which means everybody's using it and giving feedback to say, well, we want functionality that is like this, we need functionality like that. Some of these innovations that are coming out are really, changing the way that we're able to operate.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to see more of them at the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you so much for having us.